Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to really dig into the source material, pull out those key insights, and basically give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. Today, our mission, it's all about this essential skill, building boundaries that actually work, especially in demanding jobs, whether you're leading a team or just feel constantly swamped. And we're jumping right in. The sources, they give us this really provocative idea to start. It's not about a specific tactic, not initially anyway. It's about recognizing an emotion. That first feeling of resistance you get when you even think about setting a boundary, that's apparently key information.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, how the material frames that resistance. It's not like a personal failing, it's more like a map. One source put it really well, something like, if the word boundaries makes you uncomfortable good, that discomfort is information. It's telling you this is exactly the skill you need most. So we're not just theorizing. I mean, if you feel uneasy, like even just thinking about drawing a line somewhere, that feeling is pointing right at where your biggest energy leaks are. Our job today really is to help you turn that kind of internal resistance into something practical, something you can actually use, a valuable skill set.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. If boundaries are so important for, focus and leadership effectiveness, why do we avoid them so much? Why does setting a clear limit feel, scary, especially if you're in charge of things?
The sources really drill down into that fear element, and it's complex, especially for leaders. It's usually not just about hurting someone's feelings. It feels higher stakes. You might worry about conflict, sure, but maybe even more, you worry about seeming inflexible or difficult, or, and this is crucial, maybe failing to deliver on what people just expect from your role.
Ah, the unwritten expectations.
Exactly. For a lot of people in leadership spots, there's this unspoken idea that you should have, almost infinite availability. You need to look busy, be accessible. So setting a boundary, maybe saying no to a request from someone senior, or even pushing back on a meeting with your own team, it can feel like you're, managing down your ambition or going against the company culture, maybe. That discomfort we mentioned, it's signaling this clash, you see, between your need to contribute strategically and that pressure to just seem constantly on.
That makes total sense, yeah.
Yeah.
It feels easier sometimes to just accept the burnout, the short-term pain, rather than risk disappointing someone important, right? That perceived long-term risk. So, okay, if you're listening and this feels familiar, you are definitely not alone. It's a tough calculation.
Yeah.
But if we accept the discomfort as useful information, how do we actually move past it? How do we get from feeling blocked to having an actual plan?
Right, the transition has got to be practical, super practical. The material lays out the very first step as something they call practical boundary identification. You have to get really specific. Go beyond just feeling I'm overwhelmed to pinpointing the actual leaks, quantifiable leakage points.
Leakage points,
Yeah,
okay.
it means tracking where your energy, your attention is just consistently getting drained. Identifying those specific things, activities, automatic yeses, maybe even certain communication channels. Things that demand a lot of energy but give you very little back in terms of real value. The tyranny of the always open door policy, maybe. Or defaulting to reply all on every email chain. Or that 2-hour Monday morning meeting that, let's be honest, could have been a quick email. You absolutely have to spot those energy drains first. Only then can you really start thinking about defending against them.
I like that specificity. That helps. But okay, knowing your boundaries is one thing. That's step one. But it feels like only half the battle, right? We've all known people, maybe we've been that person who knows exactly where their line is. But then they just crumble the second they actually have to say it out loud. Communication. That's the real hurdle, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not enough to just know them. You got to articulate them calmly, clearly, especially when you're feeling pressured.
And this is exactly where the source material offers some, tactical relief. It really emphasizes using communication scripts and strategies. Think about it. If you try to negotiate a boundary right there, on the spot, under pressure, that fear response, that same discomfort we talked about, it just kicks in and you end up reverting. Maybe to an apologetic, yes, you don't mean, or some kind of conflict avoidant maybe that just kicks the can down the road.
Okay, scripts, I get that. But wait a second. What if setting the boundary actually does create more immediate hassle or conflict than just saying yes would have? That's the real fear, isn't it? Especially if you're dealing with, say, a really pushy stakeholder or someone high up in management. The sources need to address that.
That's a really essential distinction to make, and they do. The sources emphasize that effective scripts work because they shift the focus. They focus on system limitations, not your personal
Your
limitations.
system limitations, how does that work in practice?
Okay, so instead of saying something like, I can't take that on right now, I'm just too busy, which basically invites them to negotiate your workload, an effective script might sound more like, that sounds like a high priority task. To give it the attention it deserves, I'd need to shift focus from project X, which, is due next week. Which shift would you prefer? See how that language works? You're not apologizing. You're not really saying no directly to the person. You're just stating the reality of the situation, the capacity constraints. And you're forcing a choice about trade-offs within the system. It takes the emotion out of it mostly and elevates it to a strategic decision. So by planning out even roughly what you'll say when that boundary gets tested, you boost your effectiveness hugely, exponentially even.
That's a powerful reframe. Moving it from, I'm failing you, to, here's a resource management choice we need to make.
Okay, this feels like a good point to shift gears slightly, because the sources also get into something a bit more philosophical, which really changes how you think about the whole process. It stops boundaries feeling purely defensive.
Right. This is where we need to bring in a concept that comes up a lot in organizational psychology. Specifically, Dr. Henry Cloud's insights on boundaries as gates. This metaphor is really critical. It fundamentally shifts your sense of agency, how much control you feel you have.
Gates, not walls. Exactly. If you think of your boundary as a wall, what does that imply?
Yeah.
It's rigid, right?
Yeah.
It's purely defensive. It blocks everything. And that includes potentially valuable stuff, good relationships, information. That leads to isolation, poor collaboration. Basically a disaster for anyone, especially a leader. But a gate. A gate is different. It's a tool. It gives you active control. You decide what comes in. You decide what gets screened, what gets deferred, maybe what goes out.
Okay, I like the metaphor. But how does the gate idea translate practically, day to day, at work, beyond just, say, managing my calendar better?
Well, let's connect it to the bigger picture. Thinking of your professional time and attention as having gates means you're actively managing all the inputs, not just meetings. Take email, for instance. The gate applies there too. You aren't blocking email entirely. That would be a wall. Instead, you're controlling when and how you process it. That's the gate in action. Maybe you only check it at certain times, or you triage ruthlessly. Same goes for managing projects. You screen new requests, not by saying no, never, but by asking, okay, when is the right time for this input, or what existing resource needs to be paused or shifted to let this new project through the gate. No, it ensures you keep that necessary flow going, communication, contribution, but you're absolutely protecting your focus, your cognitive space.
That distinction really is vital, isn't it? It puts you back in control, gives you agency, you start feeling like you're constantly pushing people away or just being negative, and you start feeling more like an efficient strategic manager, managing your most valuable assets, time and energy. So let's bring this all together then. If we master this, the identification, the scripts, thinking in terms of gates, what's the ultimate payoff? The quantifiable benefit. What does it all mean for getting things done day to day and for, long-term success?
The sources are really clear on this, unambiguous actually. The main outcome is protecting high-value, productive time. That is the fundamental point of the boundary, in a professional context anyway.
Protecting productive time.
Yes. If you get good at identifying where your energy is leaking, and then communicating the trade-offs involved when new demands come in, you inherently protect your capacity, your ability to deliver the work that actually makes a difference. Boundary setting, it turns out, isn't really about your personal comfort, although that might be a side effect. It's about maximizing the impact of your output. The trade-off is usually just some minor, maybe short-term discomfort during that communication. But the payoff, massive long-term gains in focus and delivery capacity. Think about it. Leaders who constantly avoid setting boundaries, they often become bottlenecks. But leaders who learn to set clear gates, they become strategic accelerators for their teams and themselves.
Precisely. So boundary mastery isn't separate from effectiveness. It's basically synonymous with protecting effectiveness and ultimately protecting your own long-term ability to contribute. Because if you're always running on empty, always depleted, you simply can't sustain high-level performance. It's just not possible. Okay, let's quickly recap the key takeaways for you. Things you can apply right away as you leave this deep dive. First, that discomfort. Lean into it. Embrace it even. It's critical information telling you exactly where you need this skill the most. Second, move to action. Prepare those clear, non-apologetic communication scripts. Remember, focus on system trade-offs, not personal limits. And finally, really try to internalize that metaphor. See your boundaries not as defensive walls, but as deliberate gates. Gates that give you active control over what comes in and what goes out of your professional space.
And that leads to a really interesting final thought for you to maybe mull over as you start trying to build these gates. If the main goal here is protecting productive time, well, that means boundaries aren't fundamentally selfish, are they? That's often the fear. But maybe it's misplaced. Maybe they're actually a necessary part of integrity, part of professional contribution. Because by protecting your ability to focus on what truly matters, you're actually ensuring you deliver the highest possible value to your team, your organization, and yeah, to yourself too.
A strong contribution absolutely relies on protected capacity. Couldn't agree more. Now go out there, build some strategic gates, and start putting this knowledge to work right away. Thanks for diving deep with us today.